Let me take a few moments and give a quick update on some of the features I've put in to some of these applications. As always, if you can think of something, feel free to let me know. Holler at me. I'll see what I can do. And like I say, if you want to try it out or something, it's going to be. I just need to. I need to get a little bit more testing done, and then I'll link the packages. It'll have the source code in it, so you can kind of take a look at it and see how the framework is laid out and the basis for the whole flow of the application. And then I'll see if I can have a little quick synopsis of breaking it, kind of generalizing it to make things easier to navigate. Okay, so let's start with the buff out utility. So I still have that little blinking thing. I'm not really sure what causes it. I'll figure it out eventually. Okay, but one of the things I added was if a buff out log is created, it actually watches for buff out logs. If it's running, it will watch for buff out logs to be created, and if they are, it will automatically load those logs up. Like, right there. So, basically what I did is I had a Buffout log on my desktop that I simply drag and dropped into the folder, the F4SE folder, and you can see where it loaded it. And again, if you wanna look at different ones, you just drag them. You just drag and drop. So you can look at one right after another, and you can kinda see, what the log is. Again, you can use search and filters and all that. But a couple of things I wanted to show you was I had put in the filtering option, if you're doing plugins, let me see, are we banked here? Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, this is this is really deceptive. This is really not an option. It's actually data that was left over from the previous one. So somehow these I only have this problem with this program. I have no idea why, but I will figure that out. It's a ghost image. It's almost like a transparency problem where it doesn't delete the last chunk of data. It only stopped here. Okay, so I did put a filter in here to where you can look for incompatibilities. So what you would do is you would actually scan, you would put in plugins that are not compatible with SS2. And again, it's just reusing a simple filter. It's the same filter, it just reuses it by creating a new filter under the title of, let's say, SS2 compatibilities, workshop framework compatibilities. Um, if you have a list of folders or if you have a list of mods, actual mods, you could do the same thing. You could filter out very, very specific mods. You could look for you could filter out absolute no-no mods, mods that are guaranteed to crash or other problems. You could do that as well. I wouldn't have, like, hundreds and hundreds of filters. It does slow down processing, but if that's what each person wanted to do, they're more than welcome to do it. So I threw that in there, and I just kinda went through the web page, the wiki, and just kinda looked up some of the programs and went back and, kinda just looked at the archives and seen what was in it, and since it's plugins, it has to check for plugins. But that's pretty much what I added there. I also added, where you have the modules. Now this would work on the end user's machine. I put in an op because once a person I'm gonna move that bugs me. Once a person uploads a buff out log, once that's uploaded, it's just a text file, right? There's no way to link it back to their system. So it's just a text file. But if it's run on their system and they buff out log up, or if this is running and a buff out log is created, it automatically loads it. You can still, you can still do the export. You can still export because that's part of that framework. So you can still do that export, and it does export the actual list in the colors that it shows. But one of the things I added, if you skim through the list, you can just see it's just a list of modules that is in the buffout log. But if you take the option and you wanna mark modules that crashed. Now, if you skim through the list, it will mark modules that have crashed in the past. Anytime in any it yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for words, man. Oh my god, my improv needs work. But, uh but yeah, it'll actually, so basically what it does, if this let's say this crashed on your system, you could actually say, "Okay, which one of these modules was logged as a crash?" And that's what it does. So it'll show you every single module, and what it technically what it does, it gets all the crash event logs, it extracts all of the exe and DLL file names, and then simply compares it to this list. If it's on there, it flags it. And that way you can say, okay, this is a module. Now it doesn't show you the number of crashes. Now, I could easily do that, and now that I think about that, I think I'm gonna add that. I think because it's very simple. I just go in and change one text line and then just a couple lines of code, and then I can accumulate the crashes. Okay, the next one I wanna show you is the plugins. Now, this again would have to be because these are sections. These are just all and they all exist in their own windows, so their own forms, but these are just different sections. Um, but in this particular one, where it's F4SE plugins, I wanna know which ones didn't load. And because that's really a lot of times people will have that kind of question, and it's real easy because I already know it's an F4SE plugin, therefore I know F4SE is the log, and all of that is in the any files. You can change all that, but it will show you which ones did not load in the game. So this again would be something that the end user would need to use. Whereas if, I was to use it, it might show what didn't load in my game, but not necessarily what would load in theirs. And the way to know whether it loaded in theirs would be to actually look at the plugins. Now, if anybody, like if a person wants these left justified, it's very, very easy to do. You go into the any file, you look up the report number, and there's just simply in parentheses an L. You just put an L for left justified. If nothing is there, it assumes the field is center justified or centered within the column. So L would be left, R would be right if you wanted to do that. And that's pretty much it for that one. That's what I've added there. I'm not sure what to do with the rest of these yet. Like all these call stacks. I mean, you could go in if you wanted to and maybe look for addresses. You could put a filter in a sense for particular address ranges, and you could do that against the whole log and maybe look for very, very specific addresses that cause a problem, or you could build a buff out history, and then once you build the history, then you can graph it just like I did with, the addresses, the crash addresses. I believe that was it this one? Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah, that'll lose me at the moment. Okay, let me stick on task here. Alright, so the next one yeah, I know, it's funny. The next one, let me show you the next one. So, the next one is we're gonna compile it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So, the next one we're gonna look at is going to be the install packages one. Very, very simple kind of an install. But I thought about this one and I thought, okay, what if, what if I use it to install mods? Because that's one of the processes. One of the processes is you extract a folder and then you process that folder. You build that folder into an installable format and then you install it into your game. So I thought, okay, well, how could I apply that? And it was very, very simple to do. So here I'm going to give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, that was my son. Okay, so, uh, so what if I used it to install mods, right? So what I did is basically, um, I basically look at the folder after everything's extracted, and I say, "Is it a FOMOD?" So let's go ahead and go through that process. So if it's a FOMOD, what it should do, but of course it did not. There we go. Oh, it did. Just took a moment. I'm like, okay, I was looking at the crash thing. So what it does is it will automatically launch the FOMOD utility and point to the directory or the folder that it just created. So in a sense, you can go through the cycle of install mod, and then if it's a FOMOD, you can then go through the FOMOD process. So that kind of automates all of that. And then again, if you just, you close this out, and then if you just drop another one on there, you can just do one right after another. And anytime any of the functions aren't in the queue, because what I do is in the main application, I have these functions coded. So if an event comes in, I look at that event and say, okay, who gets this event? What data does this event apply to? Such as a mouse click. What is the target of this click? And then I do whatever, coding I do, and then from there it passes control to other parts of the program. So I actually have something in there where if the function isn't there, or there's a problem with one of the functions, it will literally just throw an error, and that's fine. You can actually filter those out if you want, but that's not a problem. But anyways, I wanted to show you that I threw that in there to be able to auto start. Now, if you don't want that, then you can just go in and comment out the line that you can go into the any file, comment out the line that points to the FOMOD utility, and therefore it won't launch. And that is that one. And the last one, I wasn't sure what to do with this one per se. Let's go ahead and fire this one off and get this one compiled up. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do here, but I didn't get to mention in the last video that I made that this is where user-defined buttons are going to go. So you can be able to click and do certain things, although I have no idea what they will be at this point in time. I also went in to the code and put like one very simple conditional check. So to kind of explain this, basically, again, what this interface does is load a text file, look for keywords in the text file, and then select an adjacent field as the key field to build these occurrence lists on. Is really all it does. Well, what if we apply that to a different type of a log, right? What if it's not a buffout log? I mean, not a papyrus log. It should work the same. It's a sentence of words. We can literally say, I want you to look for these words, and the next word I want you to build the key on, right? Because it doesn't care what the word is, the key, it doesn't care about the word. It's just saying, okay, when you find this word, the adjacent word is the key. This means that you could search for whatever string or partial string you want in any log, and then look for specific keywords in that sentence and create an occurrence of those keywords. So it should extend the functionality to work with other types of log files. Here, with this, the reason I put the conditional in is because the info here, this info here, this comes from a papyrus log, and the stack comes from the papyrus log. So if it's not a papyrus log, it will not show this section, and it will not show this section. It's only going to show your filters section. So again, that way, I was trying to think of a way to make it to make it more robust, but also to make it very, very extensible. So that way you can literally say, okay, here's a log from another game. this is the keywords I'm looking for, and this is gonna give me the references, and once it has the references, it will generate the same kind of list with the reference and count, and it will bring up in whatever that log is where those references are found. So that way, it should work with just about any log. Alright, so that's kinda like what I've got so far. I'm kind of out of ideas on them for right now, and I need to go back to cleaning up that utilities library and getting that ready. Outside of that, I have no idea. There's a conflict library I'm working on. Well, conflict interface. It basically just kind of rips it out of the main program is what it does. It's a function call to a games library is what it is. But it's going to require quite a few libraries. It's going to require a game library, a load order library, the plugin library, and the BSA archive library. It's going to require five libraries, including utility. So I've got some cleanup work to do. It should work just fine, but I want to kind of release the source with it, and that way people can compile it for themselves or look and see how it's done. And yeah, that's I'm kind of idea dry at the moment. I had a couple others I was thinking about doing. I thought about a little dispatching program, but I'm not really gonna do that like a dispatcher to say, okay, this is the file that dropped. This is where I need to direct the file name to this application. But the problem with that is the applications don't necessarily know they're already running, and it doesn't pass things to an already running program. I haven't even, I have no idea how to do that. Like I've never even looked at that technique. So there is a pipe built into the utility library to where you can pass things in memory. So, and I've never used it, I've never debugged it to see if it would even work. And it would probably need some hefty coding, or at least some coding to make it more, as opposed to just a file name, make it command parsable so that like a startup parameters, you would pass a parameter name and then the value of that parameter, and then depending on what the keyword is, it would do certain things such as load a given file. So I might consider doing that test, sometime this upcoming week or in this week. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I just wanted to share those features. And like I say, if you have any ideas or anything, or if you think it sucks, man, just like, dude, you know, I'm burying this with ET, and I will perfectly understand. Just a little trivia thing. Long time ago, I had a friend. We were really, really young, and he lived across the street from me. And I used to get these electronic games magazines, and he said he had ET. I'd seen ET the movie, thought, "Oh, this is really cool." He had the game ET, and I told him I didn't want it, and I'm like, "I don't want this, man." And, then I go outside, and it's in my mailbox. It's like he stuck it in my mailbox. And, so I'm like, "Oh my god." And I played this game, and I'm like, and it's the whole game was kinda like running around a map, and you fall in this hole, and then your head goes up, you extend your neck, and you're out of the hole. And then I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want this, man. You gotta take this back." And I don't know whatever happened to that game. It would've been funny if I would've kept it all these years, even though that game is, they blame the game crash of '80s on they blame the game crash on ET, but it was many different things. It was changing. It's the consoles were changing. You went from the Odyssey, the Intellivision. You went to the Atari 2600, which only had 4,096 bytes of memory, to where you could bank switch on 8,192. You could bank switch the ROM cartridge, and that gave it more memory, but still it was the limitation of the console. Then you had Coleco coming out. You had this big burst, Sega, Nintendo, all these things were coming out. But before all the Nintendo, Sega, and all that, the games really dropped downhill. A lot of books came out, the Del Rey Atari on how to program. I've still got that one. And all this thing, on how to program, this chip, the 68,000, uh, the CPU, the processor, the central processing unit, and how to program the chips. All that was there. That's where I learned about display list interrupts and some really, really cool stuff. that Atari used to really give the illusion of more colors than what it was able to do. And but the more people got access to that information, the cheaper the games were, the cheaper the quality of the games. And what really happened was at first, companies or, toy stores and, different department stores that sold games allowed you to bring the game back. So if you played the game and you didn't like it, you could bring it back. But then, uh, then people started copying the cartridges. And it really wasn't that hard to do. As long as you didn't hit the reset pin on the cartridge, you could get access to it. But anyways, once that started happening and piracy increased, then they no longer offered refunds. So now you have a situation where more games coming out are poor quality, or they're just not as good. There's not as much effort went into it, and you can't take the game back, and the prices of games started to go up. I mean, even back then, games were, $30 a pop. They could be 20, $30 a pop easy. And you paid $30 a pop for, the Hamburglar beats up Ronald McDonald, and they gave them away. So you couldn't take the games back. So it was an influx of poor quality games. The fact you could no longer take games back because the good games were getting ripped, they were getting pirated. So, stores weren't making the kind of money that they would normally make. So and so people just stop buying. They're like, "I'm not taking a chance." And, of course, then Nintendo kicked in with, the little tiny Game Boy Advance, little Game Boy, little black and white color Game Boy, and then all that kind of changed. So that was kind of like a little trip down memory lane, and all those fun times, man. All right, well, I'm gonna cut everybody loose. Hope you guys have a great evening, and yeah, get spooky for Halloween. It's just around the corner. All right, I'll chat with everybody later.